This time I'll call the Budget and Purchasing Committee together and call it in session and ask Pat to do roll call, please.
Kirby. Here. Lewis. Here. Moon. Here. Mitchell.
Here.
Sample. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Pat. Will you please do the emergency announcement, please?
In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
Thank you, Pat. This time I'll ask if there's any public input of items on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll proceed to purchasing. This is for information only. We'll move on to the next item, which is the minutes. The minutes are in your packet and they need approval. Do I have a motion? Motion second. Any discussion? Do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Finance increase and transfers. Next we have the finance portion of the agenda. If approved, these items will go on to the commission for approval. F1 increases. F1A general county clerk scanning equipment, signature pads, Roy's. This is his item.
Can I make a statement first?
Yeah.
This is just a continuation of fees that have been collected and dedicated for information systems or data processing improvements. This money sitting in the reserve for the county clerk, and this, as we've done with two other departments, is asking you to approve the appropriation of money for his investment in this technology.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Roy. Does anybody?
What efficiencies, Roy, is this going to be? Well, right now we've experienced a real increase in rental transactions.
Can you turn his mic on?
Okay. But last year we had a 13% increase in the number of transactions we did. The year before we had 11% increase. I'm estimating for this year we're going to do about 200,000, or a little bit less than 200,000 transactions. 4 years ago that was 150,000, so we're seeing a big increase. There's only two ways that I know of handling that, and that's either add employees or invest in some automation. And I'd like to see us invest in some automation rather than add employees. I guess the third way you could do it would be just to ignore the problem, but that gets expensive down the road. What I'm proposing is to put in a scanning system where we would scan at the counter. All of the motor vehicle information goes directly to Nashville. We can have instant access to that information. Right now, we're at the end of each day, we're boxing up. An employee is sorting and then boxing up and mailing to Nashville all of the data for each day. So we can save on staff time, we can save on postage, and we get a faster turnaround on our work. So I'm proposing 12 scanners, and that one goes on each counter, and then 12 signature pads.
So basically this lets us do a lot more work without the addition of any more staff.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Any more questions for Roy? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Kirby.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Samples. Yes. Motion passed.
Thank you, Roy. Item F1B, General County Circuit Court Clerk Software Equipment. If you'll look at the resolution, does that need to be pointed out, the change in that, before we vote on this?
I would just strike the word educational.
Okay. In the caption, it talks about this being from educational, and that needs to be struck from it. Did you want to discuss this, Randy?
This is another of those technology appropriations for the circuit court clerk. They have money in their reserve. They are up. We put their system out to bid, and they have selected the best response to that bid process, and this is the cost associated with implementing that new system.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Ask for roll call vote, please.
Kirby? Yes. Lewis? Yes. Moon?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Samples? Your motion passed.
Item F1C, Educational Capital Project for QSCAB funds for architect fees for Porter Elementary, $2,600. Have a motion, do I have a second? Okay, any discussion?
Troy, how, can you help us out on this a little bit?
Sure. We recently did two major roofing projects, one at Porter Elementary and one at Wallen Elementary. Architect did architectural work for both of those roofing projects, which is required for a job of that size. And the billing for the architect fees were paid out of the Wallen project, which is funded from the capital funds that sits over here under the county's control. And I wanted to transfer a pro rata share of those architect fees to the QSCAB project so that we could get reimbursed from QSCAB funds. The budget for the QSCAB project initially was $300,000. I needed an additional $2,600 to fully pay the architect fees associated with the Porter project with QSCAB monies.
How much does QSCAB money left?
About 120. Is that what? No, about 114. 15,000.
Is there a time limit on it?
Yeah, we have to have all of that spent by October the 7th of this year. We just got late last week approval from the state for one project, which is a roofing project at Eagleton Middle School, which we're taking to the board for their approval this week. And then we don't know exactly what the total cost will be until the bid goes out. Estimate to have a very small amount after that. We're trying to get another small project approved by the state. Don't have that done yet. But we will have all of that money spent, hopefully by June 30th of this year.
Anything else, Steve? Okay. I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Kirby? Yes. Lewis?
Yes.
Moon?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Samples?
Yes.
Your motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, item G, discussion and action. This is for the resolution for a multi-year agreement with Hills Nutrition for the pet food for the Animal Center. Teresa, do you? Okay, I have a motion and a second. It's open for discussion. Any questions for Teresa?
3-year.
It's going to commission because it's expiring. It's in between budget years. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why it has to go.
Yes.
This is the same thing we've done.
Just the telephone.
Yeah, all we have to pay for is the 35 cents a pound on shipping, and the rest of it's free.
They've actually restructured that a little bit. It comes out to the same as far as the cost, but they're doing it per pound of the food now, and the shipping is included.
Oh, okay.
But it does come out to around 35 cents a pound.
Okay.
It's
That shipping and food up.
it does. Mm-hmm.
Okay, does this have to have a vote? A roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Teresa. Item H is finance reports, report of fund balance and use. Andy?
Those are just reports that prior budget committees have asked us to start include, or I guess prior commission action is required or ask us to include monthly, and we've done that for you. So you can look and see what the beginning fund balance was and then any activities that we've had that impact fund balance throughout the course of the year. It would not mean that at this point in time that's exactly what the fund balance is. That's not the case. It just tells you what actions that have been presented to you that you voted on and commission has followed up and agreed to.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Do we have to vote on the fund balance? That just information only? Okay. Also, and under information only, we have the updated budget calendar. And we also have the 13-14 budget information, which you're going to be handed out today.
On the salary report, Randy, I may have asked this before, but the 101 personnel line, 51,310, it's still only showing up as 28%, and I think I asked that. Anyway, what is that salary line? This one right here. See, it's 115,000 appropriation. So is that what that is? Thank you.
What's the 141 line item of attendance rate?
Which one are you on?
72, 110, under 141.
On salary report?
Yes. Can you tell me again what the account number is?
72, 110.
I believe that's a share, is that not a
It
share?
says attendance.
No, is that in Fund 141?
Yeah.
Is there another number after the 72, 110?
No.
What's the amount?
Attendance. Attendance is what it
Attendance.
says there.
Okay. Is there an amount?
82,000.
82,000 is the line item, but we've only used 28.7, it looks like.
In that, I know in that cost center, 72, 110, there's two personnel. The first would be the attendance supervisor, which is half of Mr. Burnett, who does transportation. He's also the attendance supervisor. That's in Object Code 105, Randy. The other is 2 attendance secretaries at the 2 high schools.
Okay.
Those are secretarial positions. So I don't know if they've combined all 3 of those. That number, I'm not sure which line item you're looking at. You've combined all 3? Okay.
Yeah, it only shows we've used 37% of it, so I didn't know, is that position been partly vacant and not used?
I bet it's because we probably paid for Mr. Burnett first half of the year out of the transportation line, and has just now started charging the second half of the year out of that line item. That would be it, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
February, stuff like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay, we have item 3, budget transfers.
we need, no, we got item 2, don't we? The actual budget itself, before we get, or am I out of sequence?
You want to discuss the?
I want to go back to
Okay,
2.
all right. Let's go back to the, to number 2 on the budget. Go ahead, Randy.
We've handed out to you your workbook for the budget process that will start in 2 weeks. And I want to kind of spend a few minutes just kind of helping you with the organization, because this is going to be a little different from what you've looked at in the past, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you the way we've structured it. A little background. When we held 2 informational meetings with all the departments about what we'd like to see them do based on some feedback that I got from this body and some of the other commissioners, which is recognizing that we would have some challenges this year in the budget process. How can we start the process off by looking maybe at a status quo budget and then deal with issues as they arise that may create a demand for additional funding? The departments were very cooperative. We went through and explained to them what we could do to kind of help them organize the process a little better, and got a lot of cooperation from them, so I want to thank them for their efforts. First, we started off by asking them to put their best, put a lot of effort into forecasting where they thought they would end the year on the expense side and the revenue side. And I think we've got a pretty good product. We also, you'll find in there, I believe it's included, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dana, you'll see examples and some stuff we'll hand out next week where each of the revenues will have who's responsible for forecasting those by department. In addition to that, I probably could have done a better job of looking at our calendar. We were trying to get this to you based on this time frame, but under state law, we're required to get forms out to departments and agencies by February 1. By state law, they can be returned to us on or before April 1. But again, recognizing that we're going to have some challenges this year, we wanted to give you all as much time as we could to deliberate whatever report and recommendation you wanted to make to the full commission. As such, you'll see in your first tab, or actually the first page, you'll see penny on the tax rate calculation, FY 13-14. The left hand, that's a side-by-side comparison. On the left-hand side, you'll see 2013 at the top of the page on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, to the right of the double vertical bars, you'll see 2012. The 2012 recognizes the tax values or the assessment values as of today that were provided to us by the property assessor. And we've got those by class code, and we also put in there what the assessment ratio was for each of those classes of property. We've also calculated for you how that equates to a penny on the tax roll. And you'll see that for 2012, which is our current year, about halfway down you'll see penny on the tax rate that's bolded on the right-hand side, $300,897.66. That is based on a 95% collection rate. It's been widely discussed in this body and on the full commission. We overestimated the value of the penny. We have previously used, for whatever reason, what the 100% valuation was. And for the current year, we used $310,000 to estimate revenue on what a penny would generate. And if you look above that bolded line, you'll see that the total, what the tax roll will generate, a penny equals $316,734.38. That assumes you would collect 100% of the taxes during the fiscal year, and as you all know, we don't do that. I don't know if any community does that, frankly. So I want to get that on the table just so you'll understand the current year and then how that impacts our current year. Now, we've not collected. Scott's still in the trustee's still in the process of closing out the month of February because, as everyone knows, there's always a mad rush at the end of the month. And since that fell on Thursday, we've got what came through in the mail over the weekend and then what might come through dribbling today that was postmarked on the 28th. So we've not included revenues for the general fund or the debt service fund because we don't have the final on the penny as of the end of February. We'll have that calculated by the 15th, which is what's required by law. Under state law, under the 57 Act with the 93 local option, the mayor has to present to the director of schools and the highway superintendent his estimated value of what a penny will generate on the tax rate. We have given you some comparisons here. So if you'll look to the left-hand side of the page, under 2013, we've given you the comparable numbers for each class of property that we estimate for next year based on what the assessors provided us. We've also done the calculation on what, if you were to collect 100% of all the tax rate, what that would equate to. And a penny, 100% of the pennies are worth $317,214. Since we've not gotten our collection done for the full year, you'll see that we've estimated if our historical tax rate is collected at 95%, a penny's worth of $301,000 and change. If we collect 96%, it's worth $304 and change. If we collect 97%, it's roughly a little under $308,000. And then we've also provided for you what that would mean to the school system. And we've also provided for you the current ADA split as we know it to be at the beginning of March. So that's just some information for you to use as you go through the process. Any questions on the penny? So by next Friday, the mayor will present in writing to, as prescribed by state law, the notice to the highway superintendent and the director of schools what a penny's worth. But this at least gives some idea of what it'll be worth based on those collection rates. I'm sorry? The budget estimate was $310,000.
I understand that. How many pennies went to debt service? How many went?
73 pennies went to the general fund, 43 went to the debt service fund, and 99 to schools, if I believe it's right.
That sounds right.
So the ADA split as revised March 1 shows Alcorn variable growing. Is that correct?
Based on the information we've got, that's what it looks like. And Troy and the schools have been real helpful in getting us information as well. They've been very cooperative in getting stuff to us on a timely basis. And I'll say this, when you start your hearings on the 18th, we will have everything that they want you to see. If they haven't given it to you prior to that meeting, we'll make sure you have it. And conversely, we want to make sure they have everything that you'll be looking at as well, so that everybody's singing from the same sheet of music. Any other questions on the penny? If you flip to just the next page, you'll see this multicolored index here, and that gives you the tab. For example, the first tab is a summary report. The second tab is going to be the General County Fund 101. Tab 3 will be Fund 112. We've tried to segregate it for you by fund. So hopefully that'll facilitate a little bit easier use of your workbook as well. There have been no changes, just by way of background and assumptions, there have been no changes in, when you start looking and examining the expenses for any department, we have made no assumptions on any change in any benefit rates for any of our insured products. It is the current rates as approved by the HR and Insurance Committee, and I know they've got meetings set up, one coming up here in another week or so, and then we'll let that process play out, and we'll finalize any changes that they may make or consider at a later date, and we'll update that. And if you'll just get in the habit of bringing your workbook to each of the meetings, as we have changes, we will update your notebook for you so that you'll have it, and then we'll stick your old pages in the sleeve on the inside there, so that if you've got any notes on them, you can transpose those notes. But we'll try to keep it organized for you. The one change that you will see, if you'll go to, well, let's just start with, I guess, behind tab 1, and you'll see it's entitled Blount County Budget Summary 2013-2014 Fund 101. It should be the first page behind the tab 1. The way this is organized, this is your summary page. Left-hand side describes the expenditures that you're looking at. The first column says amended budget 1213. That is the latest action that this body and the commission have taken. So that would be the official budget as of now, including all amendments. The second column would represent the estimated expenditures that each of the departments have provided us. That's where they would expect to end June 30, 2013. The third column that says requested budget, please make sure you don't misunderstand me. This would be the column that would represent status quo. So if they weren't asking for any increase and there were some natural increase in a contract price or some natural increase in insurance rates or something like that, that would explain the difference. Then you'll see the fourth column that's called additional requested. Under state law, every department and or agency of the county government has the right to petition you and request whatever they deem in their best interest for funding requests. We have complied with state law. They have submitted what additional funding requests they deem necessary for their departments. Now, what we've done is you'll see a note column out there. We have tried to give you a notation there for why that may be requested, but that's just summary information. If you want to flip to tab 2, well, wait a minute, before you leave that page, let me finish. So you can see, for example, that if everyone hits where they think we'll end the year, the expectation is that we will have spent $42,225,000 in change for the current year. If you look at the requested budget column, which would be, I refer to it as the status quo, you can see the total for a status quo budget would be $42,543,000. And then there have been requests, and I'll characterize them as supplemental requests that we're being petitioned to consider that total about $1,748,000. And that's just in the general county fund.
Is this saying then that there's going to be, according to this, there's going to be $2 million in turnback?
No. That tells you, your definition of turnback means what they don't spend. My definition of turnback is what is the difference between revenue and expenses. And I realize most departments have no control or influence over revenue, but for this body should be concerned about how well the revenue's coming in, not just how well we're spending or managing the resources. So if I could take liberty, this tells us that we're spending over $2 million, or about $2 million less than was budgeted. But that doesn't mean we'll increase fund balance by $2 million, because we got to factor in revenue.
And do we, did one of these numbers tell us what we were projecting? We don't know what the projected revenue is.
No, as soon as the trustee gets closed out with February, I'll have a better indication. I just don't want to present information to you and we have to update it and then explain the update and then give you another estimate later on. I'd rather get as much accurate information out there as we can.
I understand.
Now, you'll notice below that there's an item called capital requests, and this is just a brief summary of the total capital that's been requested by the various departments. So there's a request for some $80,000 in roof and building improvements that make up that $80,000. There's a request for some $37,000 on data processing, and then there's a request on for the sheriff's replacement of his vehicles. That's just a summary of what's in there. Now, when you get into the expenses behind the next tab, tab 2,
Where is that 101 tab that it refers to on that summary page?
It's at the very back of the page, tab 2 is the capital request.
Tab 101?
Right.
So they're really not 101. Oh, okay, I found it. So it's right at the back of tab 2.
and we try to keep all the operating stuff up front in each tab, and then the capital would be at the back. If you look at, I guess this is page 1 behind tab 2 says expenses on it. If you'll flip to the next page, the way this is kind of laid out for you is you'll have the detail expenses, and at the top you'll see on the left in this bar up at the very top, you'll see the fund that we're talking about, 101, top left-hand corner. The account, in this case you're looking at 51,100 is the account, formerly referred to as cost center. We're trying to comply with what the state's general chart of accounts is. And then we've given you the description of what account that is, and in this case this is county commission. So you'll see the expense account on the left-hand side. You'll see the description of it in the center under account title, and then you'll see the actual expenses, the amended budget, and then the estimated expenses for the current year and the requested budget. And you'll see that consistently throughout your workbook. If there is additional request, you'll see it on your next page, which is at the bottom. And then the explanation will be there. That's what the departments turned in, and you're seeing exactly what they gave us. Any questions about that structure? I'm not going to go through all of these because it's the same. We've structured it for every department in the same manner. There is, you'll see, for example, as you go through here, I would caution you, just because someone asks for some additional funding, read their description, because there are some opportunities where we can spend money to actually make money. There will be some revenue opportunities if we increase some expense counts. And that will be the case that you'll see in probation. So read their justification for what they're trying to accomplish with that. And then in the very back under tab 12, we've included the county official salary survey that's been provided to us by CTAS. And then there'll be some other supplemental information back there behind, for example, one of the things that was a little frustrating for me going through this year is dealing with split dollars. And I know things happen over time, but what has happened is we don't use the same assumptions. So if you had split dollars in 3 different funds, one of them might have been might have been budgeted at a growth rate over the previous year at 5%. In the other fund, it might have been at 2%. And in another fund, it might have been at 7%. I'm just using that as an illustration. What we're trying to do is to go back to the source of the revenue collection, whether it's court clerk fees or whatever they may be, clerk and master fees. Look at the total collected and make an estimate of growth on the total, then split it. So when you see some of these revenues, and we give them to you later, and we may be budgeting an amount for FY14 that is less than FY13, it may be because of those arbitrary growth projections that were made in prior years. I'm trying to true some of this stuff up to where it's realistic and I can at least explain it to you. Some of these I can't. And the departments, again, have been very helpful in helping educate me through the process. So I appreciate their cooperation. The other thing I think that'll be helpful is the circuit court clerk. We've put a revenue report in here. Some of our departments will collect stuff. The register of deeds is another one. They collect money, but they have to remit it back to the state. But it's still part of what they do. And we've encouraged the departments when they come to you to make sure that they do a decent job of helping you understand the business of what they're doing, not just the numbers of it. Any other questions on? I don't want to do away with budget to budget comparisons, and I'm not trying to do that. What I am trying to do is to shift our focus a little bit to where we are looking at a budget compared to actual performance or actual expenses or actual revenues. I think that will give us a little truer picture. Budget to budget comparisons do have some value, though. I don't want to totally disregard them, and that's why we're still providing that information. That's all I have, Mayor, unless there's some other questions.
Anybody got any questions for Randy?
Not yet.
If we sit here long enough, though, you will. Yeah, absolutely. I think so too, Steve. Thank you. My staff's done a real good job working on that.
This is much easier to handle than what we've ever had.
Thank you.
Next item's budget transfers. Is this
Those are just information.
just for information only?
As I understand, Mr. Victor, from what you said the last meeting, a number of these budget transfers that have been going to the full commission didn't necessarily need to go.
That's correct. And I have taken some liberties. I have actually brought some budget transfers to this body, and they've gone on to the full commission that you were not required by law to see, but because of their impact, I felt it was necessary for you to be aware of that. Nothing inappropriate, but anytime you're moving, transferring large amounts of money, whether it be for insurance or whatever, I just think you all need to be aware of that.
In the future, will you mark those for information only or action required going to the full commission?
However
So
you
we'll
want.
know.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask for any input on items not on the agenda. Linda?
Thank you. I'm just bringing some information to you because I think it's important for you to know. I recently had the opportunity, not really opportunity, but to go to East Tennessee Medical Center for some tests. And we all know that Blount Memorial Hospital has now bought out ETMG. Well, I've dealt with them for years now, and I went and had a blood test and an x-ray done. After paying my own doctor's visit and the x-ray technician, I got a bill from Blount Memorial Hospital for $974. 2 weeks later, I had to go for another blood test, not see the doctor, a blood test, and it was $451. So after seeing these outrageous bills, I called Blount Memorial and asked them what was going on, and they said, well, now that we've bought them out, you now pay for every test as an outpatient of the hospital. You don't pay the bills like you used to pay just at ETMG. You now pay for Blount Memorial as an outpatient. And they said they were getting a lot of complaints over it. And I said, I can understand why. I said, well, if I was an illegal or if I was a county worker, I wouldn't be paying anything. But here I'm getting these outrageous bills. And I did, of course, I paid my bills. I paid in protest. I wrote on my check. But the reason I'm bringing this up to you tonight is because Mr. Vineyard did mention that there's going to be an HR committee coming up. You have just not me, but every person in this community is going to be seeing outrageous bills for their insurance, for their benefits, for their insurance coverage. And I think you should use whatever influence you have on the HR committee to say it's time that the employees of our county need to start paying for some of their benefits. We are out here paying for our own coverage, and then our tax money also goes to pay for their coverage. And when we see something like this happening at Blount Memorial now, I don't think it's fair that we should be covering ourselves and other people as well. Thank you.
Just by way of information, this is not on your agenda. I just wanted to report to you. I participated in a conference call this past week with Fitch Ratings, which is one of the bond rating agencies that looks at our credit. They provided us a list of either 16 or 18 questions that we provided them information, and prior to the conference call, and then had the conference call. They rated us last on April the 1st, 2011. At that time, we received a AA- credit rating, which is still a very good credit. And we have complied with what they've asked us for. They sent us a supplemental request for information of another 3 items, I believe it is. And I'm in the process of, I'll get that to them by this Friday. And then they will be going to committee, and by the end of the month, they will present us a draft of what report they plan to make public and allow us to critique that report for any inaccuracies of the information we've provided them. They were very complimentary. One of the things they're interested in that I'll owe them by the end of the week is where they think we'll end this year. I will be very surprised if we get any change in our rating. Just the nature of the questions, they just wanted to make sure that, unlike a lot of local governments that have been under a lot of duress, we seem to be in pretty decent shape by comparison to some of the other credits. So I've had a follow-up conversation with our financial advisor this afternoon just to kind of get a sense of where she thought we were at after that conversation, because we hadn't talked since the conference call. But I wanted you to be aware of that. And I think I provided you the questions and the answers that S&P asked for, and I'll do the same on this once I complete the information that I send them. I'll get that to you and all the other commissioners for that matter.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Does anyone else have anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn.